Good morning, folks. Good morning. March 13th, Monday. Okay, it's about 18 minutes after 4 in the morning. I woke up just before 4. That's the time I always got up when I was working stiff. I had to commute to work. I had to commute to school about the same amount of time, 45 minutes one way. Then when traffic was bad, that easily became an hour. One morning, the accident on the road was so horrific that it took more like 2 hours. A fellow on the reservation fell asleep behind the wheel in his pickup truck, drifted off into the lane of the highway in the desert, head on into an earth-moving truck. It happened to be empty, but he managed to hit it so darn hard that the front axle separated from the truck, and he pushed the earth-moving truck back a solid 12 feet from where the axle lay in the middle of the road by itself. And the rear earth-moving containing part of the car, the dump part that would rotate to the side, it had lifted up and was off the highway beside it, kind of in the ditch, almost in the desert, at a whole different level. There was fuel everywhere. It was the tarmac was black with fuel. It was dark, and he left his foot in his boot with bottom part of his leg in the middle of the road. I couldn't get the smell of gasoline off the soles of my shoes for a long time after walking through that. And I really felt for the truck driver because he was losing it. He was crying, and he knew, he was so worried that he was going to get hung for motor vehicular manslaughter, which today brings 12 years in the slammer. It used to be a 1-year sentence. You had an accident, you took a life. You certainly didn't try to take the life. You certainly didn't intend to take the life. In this case, the fellow wasn't at fault, and we did our best to calm him down and let him know, hey, clearly the fellow in the pickup truck fell asleep and crossed the median because the truck was on its side of the road. Good morning again, folks. This is Awakening. This is not Awakening Israel. This is a Dr. Kent show. This is giving psychology away. Why do we start off with that one first? Well, it lets me wake up. But also it lets me tell you that I just watched a brief video where the Congress votes to restore our free speech rights. And AOC pipes her up. She really hates us, folks. She hates you and me. She hates us all. She piped up and wanted to have a vote. She challenged it. I couldn't hear the yeas or nays when the fellow called for the vote verbally. I didn't hear anybody say yes. And she called for the vote and holding them accountable. And of course, the Republicans voted for it. Democrats voted against it, except for 2, maybe. The Democrats really hate us. If you don't believe me, then read the Bible. The Bible says you will be ruled over those who hate you. It says that clearly, at least twice. Deuteronomy and Leviticus is part of the curses for disobedience. It's part of what our relatives agreed to at Mount Sinai a long time ago. Now, the natives are racist people. By the way, that was a fellow on the reservation who fell asleep behind the wheel. I was going to go up and look and see if I could help him, and this other fellow who had gotten there first told me, don't bother. He's dead. That's nothing we can do for him. And so I did not go up and take a look at him myself. And the truck was like a F-150 lightweight half-ton truck, was demolished. I don't see how anybody could have survived that. Just crashed up all the way into the passenger compartment. Just really mangled terribly. And I guess he was stuck in there from that impact. And he passed away rather well, and a fellow said he looked like he was asleep. So he died in his sleep, basically, behind the wheel. I don't know how many days it took that truck driver to get his feet back on the ground. I don't think he ever got his feet back on the ground. I mean, that was a very traumatic thing. There was nothing he could do about it. There was no shoulder to roll off on. There was no place to do anything with that truck. I'm amazed that it didn't roll over when the earth-moving part of it was lifted off the road. It was just lifted up and put down, and it was about 3 or 4 feet lower than the road. If he had tried to go off the road to avoid that guy, he would have rolled the truck. It was probably too fast anyway. That highway, people tend to travel about 60 miles an hour, head on, 2-lane road. Right on the reservation, pretty much. Look, folks, the Bible speaks very truthfully. I know you can find just about anything in there. You can also make anything you want of it. You can interpret it the way you want. You can malign the word. You can do all kinds of things. You can do all kinds of mental gymnastics and gyrations on it to make it come out the way you want to support whatever asinine idea you have. But the simple straight-ahead witness is, you shall be ruled over those who hate you. And that is the way it is in our nation today. That, to me, is the number one indicator that we've screwed up. We have turned our backs on Creator, Father, God, Yahweh. We hate Him. And as a result, He brought out His lightning sword. In case you're wondering, the word for that is Barak, to use against those who hate Him. As it says in there, was it Deuteronomy 31:42? I think that's right. I will use my lightning sword, my double-edged sword, my sword of lightning, my Barak, against those who hate me, against mine enemies. This is one of those precious things in the Bible. Now, did the Bible foretell us about the existence of Barak? Did it? I mean, seriously, is that what the Bible tells us? Is that the Bible tell us about Barack insane Obama before he got to office? Did it warn us? Is Barack in the Bible? Yes, we can look at it that way. Is that a reasonable way to look at it, though? I don't think so. I think that the CIA and the people that took this nation down, that's right, this has been a handcrafted thing in the works for a long time. I think the people that took this nation down took the name of Barack out of the Bible, part of their psychological operations. You see, it's one of those things where reality imitates art, or should we call this art imitating reality? Okay, here we are. I got to put the overhead light on, sorry. I know it's annoying. Deuteronomy chapter 32, verse 41. If I sharpen my Barak and my hand takes hold on judgment, I will render vengeance to my enemies, and I will reward them that hate me. Now, who does that sound like is talking to you? Doesn't sound like Adam to me. Doesn't sound like Eve either. It's Creator Father God Yahweh saying, if I sharpen my glittering sword. It's also interpreted lightning in other versions of the Bible. Yeah. Our ancestors agreed at Mount Sinai to abide by the 10 Commandments. We made a deal, a treaty, a compact, a covenant. And we violated it. And we are not getting away with it. You might think you got away with things. I might think I've gotten away with things, but everything is there. It's all recorded. When you and I pass, you're going to see the most beautiful, beautiful film you've ever seen in your life. The most beautiful movie. It is going to be so detailed. The colors are so grand. It's so real. And you are going to see not just the trees, you're going to see every leaf in that tree as you recall your life, as your life passes before you, as it gets played back to you. There's some things in my life I don't want to see again. I want to forget about. I don't want to remember. I'll bet you've got some of those things too. When our nation was founded, we knew who we were. Every one of our founders was schooled in this book. Not this version. It didn't exist until 2015. Most of my life was spent in the 1900s, so it's kind of hard to sometimes figure out which century I'm in, okay? If you want to save the nation, if you really want to be a free people, then you have to be under some authority. And you really should school yourself, educate yourself, become familiar with the foundation of Western civilization. All of our Western civilization was built upon this book. Okay, there's a couple of other books out there that others use. But they don't predate this book. They came afterwards. Parts of this book come from the previous Earth Age, before the last catastrophe on the surface of the planet. And it speaks of the Spirit of the Lord hovering over the waters of the deep. That's where the Genesis was. That's where the beginning was for this Earth Age. And the people in the Philippines talk about Tagalog. It's the name of the bird. It hovered over the waters as well. It was the Spirit of the Lord terraforming the earth. The earth is set up to recycle itself. And we just happen to be on the cusp of the recycling. You want to know when it's going to be? 2046. You want a date? I'll give you a date. I can't be fully confident in this date. But apparently the floodgates opened up during Noah's flood about 6,000 years ago on October 16th, according to one fellow's reading of the Bible. And he is the one that has claimed that this next catastrophe, this next recycling of the earth, will occur between September and December of 2046. He just happened to mention October 16th being when the flood started. So I think that's when this next event occurs as well. And if you look at it, between September 1st and December 31st, October 16th is pretty much in the middle of it. Well, maybe between September 1st and December 1st, October 16th is in the middle of it. But it's in there. It's in the ballpark, folks. That's coming. And most of you will not be around to see it. I'm not planning on it. I'd be a very old man at that point. Actually, the oldest Kent that ever is alive today is 97, and then 2046, I'm going to be 90. Well, it'll be about the time of my birthday, so I'm going to be 94. No, I don't get to last that long. The medical profession destroyed me a long time ago. They shortened my life many years ago. My fate was cast in my 30s, and so I don't have the strength of organs to make it that far. Just the way it is. You know, these medical doctors don't tell you everything. They don't think they need to tell you everything. And besides that, they're a bunch of dumbasses. They do exactly what they're told. That's what they did this last time. I'm almost embarrassed for the doctors, but it's in time they got put in their place. Why? Because they like playing God. Yahweh doesn't like competition. You know, he doesn't want the devil rising up above him. He's not going to allow it. Yes, the devil and his children, they run this planet. They own it. That's provable in the Bible. It was offered to Yeshua, took him to the top of the mountain, says, here, all this can be yours if you just drop down on your knees and worship me. Yahweh was fed up with it by then and told him where to go, basically. So, what are you going to do about the fact that these people who rule over you hate you? They're in D.C. and they hate us all. At the best, they look down their nose at the rest of us. And they know that there's a separate legal system for them, a whole different standard, and they will never be held accountable. By the rest of us are bled dry, while the rest of us are oppressed, suppressed, and exploited. While we are the victims of the crimes, even our police can kill us and get away with it, like happened up in Farmington, Utah the other day. Young man, 25, I think it was 5 police officers opened up on him. I don't know how many police officers, but I don't think he fired a shot. I wonder if he even had a gun. One police officer yelled, gun. What, just because you see a gun, that gives you permission to shoot? The possession of a gun is enough to set you off as a police officer, that you're going to call for your fellow officers to all pull their guns and shoot this poor son of a bitch in front of you? Do you fear for your life that much? I'm sorry. You shouldn't be a police officer. That cop should be fired. Whoever it was that said that. Now, if there was a gun on the floor of their car, that's still not good enough. If there was a gun in a holster, by God, then those officers committed murder. And your chief of police in Farmington, Utah, is covering up the murder, saying he believes these police officers deserve their privacy, so he's not going to release their names. Look, folks, I would call that damaging the public. Wouldn't you say that's damaging? Isn't that damaging somebody? I'm not talking about the bloody mess on a nice BMW. I'm talking about taking the man's life without cause. What? Over a technical quabble. Yes, it's worth killing a man because he's, in your eyes, failed to register his vehicle. Well, maybe he has declared his citizenship properly, so he is protected by the Constitution. Maybe he's come out of this beast system, this maritime admiralty law, this horrible bunch of crap you foisted off on the rest of us. Maybe he's exercising his right to travel. Man, they pull so many frauds and so much bullshit on us that we don't know up from down. We don't have a proper set of values. And I'm sorry, but when police officers make that kind of a mistake, should they not be fired? They have damaged somebody. They have robbed him of his very life at 25. Apparently, he was reaching for his passport. And I'm going to bet his passport said that he was not a citizen of the United States, but it was issued by the United States, and it probably had him down as a citizen of the state of Utah. A landed citizen. One protected by the Constitution, and not subject to this bullshit out of Washington, D.C. Folks, I'm just bringing it to your attention. So what is the higher value? This guy being compliant? This guy abiding by some unconstitutional mandate that requires him to pay a tax to travel on the highways in his private car? There was a time we didn't have to have driver's licenses. There was a time we didn't have to have marriage licenses. There was a time we didn't have to have fishing licenses. We didn't have hunting licenses. Whenever you hear the word license, think of the root word licentiousness. You're given a license to do that which is criminal, that which is illegal. I'm not driving around without plates because you're all crazy out there. I don't want to get blown away on the side of the road because some officer feels threatened and decides he's going to tell his other fellow police officers, I got a gun, so he can get them to shoot me. What kind of law enforcement is that? Wow. So you're telling me that the fact he doesn't have a postage stamp on the rear bumper of his car, that's worthy, that merits taking his life? That has more value than the man's life? Look, I'm not saying the guy wasn't contributing to his own demise, somewhat. I think he was. From what I read, he was on a cell phone, and he transferred the cell phone from his left hand to his right hand. Now, how is he going to grab a gun, unless he's left-handed, with his right hand, if he's got his right hand on his cell phone? The police just can't think straight anymore. They aren't educated properly. You aren't educated properly. I'm not educated properly. Nobody's educated fully upon the Constitution, what's really in it, what proper law is, what common law was, what it used to be before they stopped taking common law pleas in our courts about 1964. I always thought Lyndon LBJ was the worst president I'd ever see. We've had worse. We've had men up there with bad judgment who are full of themselves. I read the story of Gideon. That when Gideon was told, the people told him, hey, rule over us, because he had saved them from the Midianites and the Amalekites. He had saved them from the oppression. They couldn't even use the wine presses. They couldn't thresh grain. They couldn't do any of that stuff without it being taken away from them, without them being robbed by these marauders. And Gideon stopped it. So they insisted that he lead them. And he says, oh no. And they actually said they wanted his son to lead them, and his son sons. And Gideon actually said something very wise. Now he did something dumb right after that. Built an ephod that screwed up everything. He said, I'm not going to rule you. My son's not going to rule you. And his sons are not going to rule you. Yahweh rule over you. So who do you want ruling over you? I mean, who do you really want ruling over you? Yahweh's going to rule over you no matter what. So you want these middlemen? You want their bizarre, obscure law where they get to rape, rob, pillage, and murder you under the color, the pretense of enforcing the law? Folks, we used to have our own militias. 1902, they officially took those away from us. That little postage stamp, that little imbecilic government in Washington, D.C. that's not even part of the United States of America. It's considered a separate territory, separate jurisdiction. It's one of the 3 city-states, if you will, that consist of the beast system that we live under. The others being the little city of London, within London proper, which is like a 1.5 miles square, and it's a place for the bankers, for the corporations, for the attorneys. And then your big one is out of Rome, called the Vatican. You don't believe me? Well, I have it handy. No, I don't have it handy. I had it handy, and I put it somewhere. I had the Apocrypha, the King James Apocrypha handy. You can look it up online. It's called 2 Esdras 11. Esdras is the Latinized form of the word Ezra, E-Z-R-A, the prophet in the Bible. The book of Ezra is right next to the book of Nehemiah. Basically, it's an historical book. Esdras, E-S-D-R-A-S. Look up 2 Esdras, chapter 11. There's your 3-headed eagle for you. It takes up more than the chapter, by the way. That's your beast system. This is the continuation of what the prophet Daniel saw. He was told to shut the book up and not write about this. It was for the end times. It wasn't for the people to know about at that time. But we are at the end of the earth age, so it's end times. It's time for us to know that stuff. I think that's important. If we really were a civil and humane group on the planet today, we'd be talking about this openly and would be discussing with each other how to best survive it, how to best go through it, how to preserve some of us, some of our children, some of the seed stock, maybe some of the technology that we have today. We'd be trying to figure out how to come through this on the other side so that we could rebuild civilization. But this is a culling period. This is when a lot of us die. This is when a lot of us just don't make it. And we've always made it before. You're wondering how long man's been on the planet? Well, the earthy man, the Enosh or Enoshwi, yes, that's a word from the original Bible text. I would estimate they've been on the earth for approximately 1.75 million years. Yes, they've been here a long time. Then as far as Adam, we were placed here last. We're the newcomers. How long ago were we placed here? We arrived shortly after the fallen angels, the white devils, as the Chinese call them. And they brought with them the black woolly-haired ones as slaves from another planet system. About 70 to 72,000 years ago. And here we are, thinking we know it all. We don't even know our own history on this planet. And every time we make a scientific breakthrough, the evil ones step in and obscure it, They don't want us to have the benefit of anything. I had a wonderful washing machine set. It used nano silver technology. And as a result of that, it would kill all of the bacteria. It was off the market within 2 years. Why? It was too good for us. They can't have that. They have to have us exposed to all kinds of pathology, all kinds of poisons, all kinds of stuff that's bad for us. They can't allow us to have anything really good for us. They have deprived civilizations wholesale of proper nutrition, causing rickets over in India and stuff like that. They have deprived populations of the nutrition they've needed so they can control them. These are really wicked, evil people that ride on top of the rest of us, that predate upon the rest of us on the planet. You think they don't exist? Go look at Washington, D.C. And above all, look at that bureaucracy. Look at your State Department. The State Department is nothing but communist. Look at your FBI, your secret police, the enforcers of it all. It's not a constitutional organization. It's extra constitutional. It shouldn't even exist. Our founders would never have had it. You want to return to self-rule? Then form your militias, because you're going to be doing it anyway. Because it's coming down the pike. You're going to have to defend yourselves. It's going to happen sooner than what we think. Could be this summer even. The food riots might require it. Oh yeah, your secret state, your deep state's been destroying your food supply as fast as it can. Why do you think all these food processors have been burning up? Why do you think all these animals are being destroyed unnecessarily under false pretenses? Why do you think these rich men who are supposedly philanthropists have your best interest at heart, would never hurt a fly, know medicine better than the experts do? Why are they buying up the food supply? They're doing it to choke the rest of us off. It's a concerted effort. See, I think the bad guys read the Bible too. I think they use it as a playbook. I think they imitate art as much as they can. Part of their psychological operations to keep the rest of us off kilter. What was it they called that stuff? The Muslim Spring? That happened a long time under Bush. And I remember watching the crowd, and somebody put a computer graphic image over the crowd. It was supposed to look like a white horse above the people's head. It's dancing above it like, oh, the white horse of the apocalypse. It's in the Bible. The pale horse. They will do anything to throw us off. Well, this is a Monday morning. I think I've had my peace of mind with you. A friend of mine's radio show was called Speak Your Peace. She was brilliant. She did a good job. And the people that called in were so impaired. They weren't very bright. And I guess she had a hard time managing those phone calls because they really had good hearts. They really were well-intended people, but they were very simple-minded. And I think that's kind of a shame. And she was so brilliant. She didn't know what to do. She just handled those as best she could. It was a live show. You're stuck with a live caller. You're stuck with their comments in front of the world. You don't want to mock them, embarrass them. You don't want to do that. She was smarter than I was. She could practice political correctness. She had a master's degree. She's a very intelligent woman. I miss her a bit. I'll have to look her up Lost her phone number. I'll have to look her up when I go through Tupelo. I hope she's still alive. We're all getting older these days. Hope her husband's still alive, too. Richard was a great man. I did my brakes once on my car. Richard told me I could do it. He insisted that we do it together, on the phone, long distance. And Richard is describing to me what these front brakes look like, these disc brakes, these pads, and using, the C-clamp and all of that. It took more than 2.5 hours. It might have taken 4 hours. It took a long time. But you want to know what's amazing? Richard's guiding me on the phone. Richard is blind. And he's telling me what the brakes look like. He's telling me what to look for. Telling me what the parts look like. I got them in front of me and I can see them, but I don't recognize them. And here he is on the phone. Wow. How many people can say they were led by a blind man long distance on the phone doing a job they were totally unfamiliar with? See, I don't have a mechanical bone in my body. I'm the antithesis of that. I just am not mechanically inclined. My brother got all those genetics. I didn't get any of them. Folks, we have an illegal government ruling over us in D.C. They slowly but surely took us over, took us down from within. And it appears as though there's a parallel between today and what happened when the King of England decided to oppress us. He decided he wanted us back. He had already set us free. And we set up parallel governments, including safety commissions back then. And we set up things for ourselves and did it all on our own. We didn't go in and challenge that government that the king had set over us. We didn't protest it. We didn't waste our time with it. We formed our own governments and acted on our own and did it ourselves. That's the attitude you need to have with Washington, D.C. That's the attitude you need to take with your state government. That's the attitude you need to take with your school boards. You need to cut them off of the money, for sure. No more taxes on property to go to education. You need to cut them off right there. You can't argue with them. You will not win. Don't waste your time. Don't get frustrated. You'll come to blows if you do that. Oh, yes, they'll investigate you further. The FBI will investigate you. So you ignore them. You ignore them and you start your own organizations, your own political bodies. And you give them authority and you listen to them and you do what you want. You do what they want. You don't have to go after them. You don't have to rebel. I don't think you have to riot. As a matter of fact, the one reason you want your militias is because its first job was to quell insurrections, to put down riots, to control such mayhem, destruction of property. Yeah, it's in the Constitution. It's expressly written. I got it here on the tabletop under some papers, I think. If not, it's probably in the backpack pocket. And the second task of your militias, by the way, in the Constitution is you defend the borders. So if you form a militia and you're defending the border and your state gets sued over it, your state can defend it all the way to the Supreme Court and win. It's written in the Constitution. They cannot deny it. That's why I just was taken back when people, they don't want militias. You see, they've done a malicious job on the word militia. They've treated horribly. A militia, that means there's going to be bloodshed. No, not necessarily. When you have a show of that much force, the enemy usually doesn't want to fight because they know they're going to lose. When you have that many men armed up and determined, to render justice, and they know right from wrong, and they know what they're going to do, then the enemy usually gives up because they can't resist the determined people. So militias, some states in this country today never had a militia. Isn't it time you had a militia? And a militia is a volunteer group. Nobody goes buying your arms for you. Matter of fact, in the colonies, they had laws that required an able-bodied man to be a member of the militia, and they had laws that required him to have so much in terms of ball and powder, and certain arms were required. Usually 3 arms were required. One was a short sword. Another one was a pistol. Another one was a long gun. And I wouldn't be surprised if you had requirements in some that you had to have a musket, a smooth bore, a shotgun, along with a rifle. Both. It took longer to reload a rifle than it did to reload a musket. So most of those fellows carried both. They fired their first shots with their rifles. And then they got out their muskets so they could go to town and reload and fire as quickly as possible. And there were fully automatics back then, by the way. Even Lewis and Clark had a fully automatic. I think it was a 50 caliber on top of that. It was not a small rifle. They always put on demonstrations for the Indians whenever they visited a new tribe, a new village. I guess that made quite an impression on them when they saw, I don't know how many rounds it fired at one time. I think it fired 8 or 25 rounds automatically. So you got a machine gun going off in front of you, splintering up this pine board that's in front of you. Oh boy, you don't want to deal with that. These guys got some firepower. It probably helped to keep them safe when they crossed the country and took note of it. Folks, that's all I got for you. I hope you got something from this. Do like this video. Above all, become a Bible reader. Become a good man. Become a good woman. Become the best you can be. Read the Bible. Educate yourself. Don't let any snobby son of a bitch tell you what's in the Bible. Read it for yourself. Don't trust these people making up stories and fables. Read it for yourself. There's plenty there. You want drama? It's there. You want suspense? It's there. Intrigue? You want family squabbles? It's there. Murder, bloodshed, even some peace stuff is in there too. You want to know the right way to live? You want to be able to think correctly? You want to be able to make the best decision for yourself? Educate yourself. Sit and read your Bible. And don't try to form a religion of it. Read it for the history. Read it for the laws. Read it for the principles. Look at those families. Learn from their examples. Don't do the stupid stuff that David did. David screwed up with Bathsheba. And look at what that did to his children. It's pretty bad how that went through the family. Okay, folks. We've gone a little over 40 minutes here, 43 minutes. May Yahweh bless. May He restore the Republic by making America good again. Do your part.